Hello and welcome back everybody to the Foodbuild factory, where today we're going to take a look at the Frost Demon. That's the guy you can see on screen right now, and as always I'm going to show you some gameplay in the first part of the video, and in the second part of the video we're going to take a look at the equipment, the perks, the mutations and everything that makes the character. So let's get right into it. We're going to take a hit at this there turret, and then there should be some radar or something. And what this build is going to be about is, as you can probably tell already, is we're going to play as a melee build. More specifically with two-handed weaponry. That means we're using this here warglaive. Now you can probably see that we're not using two hands, but that's just a side effect of using power armor, which I always found to be a very cool little detail. That when you are in power armor, you're using two-handed melee weapons, slugger weaponry, as a one-handed weapon, which is kind of cool, and it also works very well with the aesthetic of the warglaive. Now, first and foremost, the warglaive we are using here is an anti-armor swing speed version, which is it was incredible luck on my part. Now, similar to the Crusader pistol I shown off last week, I think it was. Yeah, you have to get the plans and a random chance from daily operations. And once you have the plans, you then have a random chance to get the weapon from the purveyor or from certain events or daily ops again. So it's not exactly easy to get hands on a good legendary version of these weapons. And especially if you're looking for something specific, like let's say you have a bloodied melee character. Yeah, the chance of getting a good bloodied warglaive is, well, nearly impossible. I know for a fact that Oxy has a bloodied swing speed version, which is incredibly cool, but yeah, I won't say that the anti-armor swing speed version here is something I'm not extremely happy about. Now, there's an argument to be made that anti-armor on melee weapons is kinda overkill, because you already have that perk called Incisor that gives you 75% armor penetration, which is huge, and so 50% extra armor penetration from the weapon itself isn't like 50% directly. It's more like 70% 75% is taken off from the anti-armor effect, from the incisor effect, and then you have 50% of that being reduced by the anti-armor effect. So overall that leaves you with what, 12.5% armor that's being left. But so you're losing out on a bit of an effect on the weapon, but overall it's still very great. And another thing is that the warglaive itself just is such a good weapon that, yeah, even the non-legendary version performs pretty well in my opinion. Like, they're very cool, so at least you have that. I think there's a suppressors version you can get as a fixed reward, with at least with more power attack damage, which is great. We're going to use a lot of power attacks during the video. That's the main source of getting good damage with this weapon here, and we do have some modifications on our power armor that reduce the cost for such power attacks, which is very great. They work very well, like they are reducing the cost by a lot. I'm not sure what exactly the numbers behind it are, but yeah, you see a very big difference. Like before I used I'm not sure, optimized braces, no, hydraulic braces. Anyways, the arm modification that reduces the AP cost, I was doing like 4 to 5 power attacks with a full AP bar before we were down, and now, as you can see here, we can do definitely more. Like we're already 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 probably. We didn't really start with 100% AP, so yeah, it's about doubling your ability to power attack. Now, I'm not sure if we want to go for the Scorch Beast. It actually works kind of well once it's on the ground, but you know how it goes. We can't really force the Scorch Beast to land, and I don't want to switch in perks and use a shotgun to cripple it. So yeah, it does work fairly well. Now here we do have a Scorch. We just might want to hit it. Another thing about the build, I do really like the aesthetic, especially the aesthetic of the Warglaive was always something I was really fond of. Like, I immediately like the weapon. It's such a shame that it uses this stupid model to be obtained. It should work like Wastelander stuff, in my opinion, where you, once you get the plan, or you can buy the plan even, you can then craft the weapon with legendary modules. But that's a fairly common complaint, and I don't see it changing in the near future, so we're stuck with this. Now, the combination of aesthetics here works very well in my opinion. We're using this Frostblade, and the power armor, except for the helmet, is using the... Did he land there? Or was it the crop duster effect? Yeah. The power armor, except for the helmet, is the Scorched Paint, which you can also get from daily operations. And even though it's supposed to be burns, I think, on the metal, it does kind of look like frost a little bit, so it really fits. And we're using a Scabber helmet just to give it a bit more raidery look, a bit more badass. But overall works together very well in my opinion. And one thing that I can say about the build is that usually you don't all the time. It's not all the time that you see melee builds using power armor, simply because you can get a lot more. Yeah, that's all right. You can get a lot more strength outside of power armor if you really dedicate it and take your time to farm the necessary pieces. I think we're not going to bother with this guy. You can get 5 strength from just legendary modifiers, major effects that should be. Then obviously there's unyielding armor, which gives you by far the biggest boost to strength that's possible in the game if you are at low health. So yeah, power armor has its downsides when it comes to melee. However, ever since patch 22 I felt like, yeah, increasing survivability is more and more a necessity on melee builds in my opinion, because even with the most powerful melee builds, there are quite a few enemies that take some hits, and in that situation that's where it becomes hard. Like overall, I mean, if you're using 1 or 2 shots on a super mutant, doesn't make as much of a difference as it makes on a very dangerous enemy, let's say a Sheep Squatch or the Scorchbeast Queen. If you can't take her down in a few hits or something, you really need some survivability going on. So overall, in favor of increasing our survivability, I went for the approach to not have the best damage, if that makes sense here. And overall, I gotta say that ever since patch 22, I think this is the melee build I have the most fun with, simply because it's... yeah, it just feels like melee always felt to me in these games. Like, you wanted to have a tanky character, and once you had that, you were free to just really go into enemies and do your thing, and don't really have to bother about weight, about your health all that much. Now, you're still taking damage. We're not exactly the most tanky and the most tanky build, but combining the power armor with some stimpaks going on, and you barely die. It really rarely happens, and if so, most of the times it's because you made a mistake and didn't really take the necessary stimpak when it was time or something. So other than that, there's really no reason to ever die with this character. It is definitely tanky enough, and your survivability is there. And the simple fact that the Warglaive is such a good weapon makes this damage output alright at the end of the day. Like, especially once you're getting power attacks in, you can really do some serious damage, and even on harder enemies you can take them down pretty sufficiently. The fact that you can bypass nearly all the armor of the enemy is also very nice. I mean, I'd still take... probably an instigating version would be nice. However, when it comes to bosses, obviously something else would be better. A Junkies could be a nice idea if you find the right addictions. Obviously Bloodied is the best version here you can get, but yeah, other than that, I think anti-armor really is one of the better effects you can get on this weapon, and swing speed obviously one of the best effects as well. There's an argument for power attack damage, however, especially on heavy weapons, on two-handed weapons that are having a slow swing speed, I feel like the faster swing speed is more beneficial than the power attack damage. Unless you really want to go out of your way to deal the most damage with one hit, that is, for some reason. I can get behind why you would be enjoying that. And as you can see here, even with the super mutants, we're having basically no trouble at all. Like, the higher versions, 75 and up, may take 2 hits, but yeah, you have a fast swing speed, it's not a problem. You do have reach, but I think that's something that's just conceived as a difference by me, but actually isn't. I think like every slugger weapon has the same range. I just feel like with some weapons I do have more range than with others, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's... yeah, I'm imagining that, probably. The weapon has an incredible sense of detail. Now, if you look at it in first person, you can see it a bit better. It also changes heavily depending on the different modifications you're using. Now, I went for the cryo blade because first and foremost, I find it the most cool option. That wasn't a pun, by the way. Like, just aesthetically pleasing option. I really like the form of the blade, and also this little frost and the cryo cell in the middle. That's very cool. I also used the plasma modification for a while. Now, in terms of damage, there's not a big difference overall. You do have the flaming... what the fuck? You do have the flaming modification, the plasma modification, the cryo blade, and I think the last you have... like, something is weird here. Alright, yeah, somehow my hits don't really register. I'm not sure what happens here. Alright, this one went down. Okay, I think we're back at it. What did I want to say? Yes, and lastly, we do have the standard blade. The damage is pretty much similar. Sorry guys, I'm not sure what's happening here. Some of my servers are really messed up. Can you see that? Like, we should deal 1500 damage. If we're now dying to that shit, I'm canceling my Fallout 1st subscription. Just kidding, I'm not, but this is very frustrating here. I never had this bad of an experience with server lag and melee. This was awful. I really hope it gets better for the rest of the video. Back to the topic. The damage is always pretty similar, no matter what modification you're using. The difference is that on the cryo blade, the flaming blade, and the plasma blade, the damage is split between ballistic and energy damage, or cryo damage, or fire damage, respectively. Alright, yeah. Servers are still very laggy. I'm not sure what happens here, because it's not exactly a time where a lot of people are using the internet and everything, so I think it's not my connection that should be the problem. Yeah, it's probably something with the server. It's a real shame, because yeah, it's really cool taking out this Deathclaw with like 3 hits usually, and now we take what, 20 or something. It's kind of a bummer. Well, anyways, we're taking out these super mutants, maybe the front yard, because I have a feeling we were pretty fast, and then we're going to take a look at the perks. And yes, so overall the best ballistic damage you get from the standard blade, as far as I'm aware. But in terms of performance, I was using the standard blade, I was using the plasma blade, the cryo blade. I didn't bother with the flaming one, but they were all performing very similar. Now, the cryo blade has one advantage if you're going against toughest enemies that take a few hits. You can substantially slow them down over time. Like, with every single hit you have a chance to slow them down more. I think we see it here a little bit, but that's just because we're taking way more hits than we should on most enemies. Yeah, I may try to give the hits a little bit of time to register. like hitting him once. Alright, this one worked better. I think we're back at it. Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, it seems better now. I hope you're not an epileptic, by the way. The second I used first person was a bit much going on the screen, so excuse me for that. And yes, in terms of performance, all the blades I was using were performing pretty similarly. Yeah, I told you about the benefit from the cryo blade, but it's not substantial, so go for whatever you like here. I just wanted to have this frost appeal, and that's pretty much all the reasoning here. So the plasma blade looks also very cool in my opinion. I'm taking those biometric scanners, but I think overall, nope, not done. Here's a level 100, but no, I think we should be done. Alright, so that's the gameplay part of the video. I hope you enjoyed it so far, and I hope you have an idea of how the build turned out, even though it was a bit of a laggy mess. I don't want to re-record the video though, and there I saw some lonely super mutant, not a level 100. I also hear a dog, so how many things have I overlooked here? Now it should be... no. Damn, man. Let's use a hard brancher here, just because you're lonely. That's power. How the fuck... how many super mutants are there today? Alright. I don't care, we now take a look at our perks. That should really have been the last thing. Now firstly we're going to take a look at our effects. You can see the maximum adrenaline going on at the moment, at least our maximum, but that's about it. Sadly we do have sludge lung, but you know, we are not using APS heavily. It was messing a little bit with our power attacks, but well, anyways. Here's the interesting part, our mutations. We do have Empath, Marsupial, Plague Walker, Speed Demon, Talons, Twisted Muscles, and Unstable Isotope. Now we do have a little bit of dead weight here, mainly Empath and Talons. We're not using unarmed weapons, so Talons is kind of redundant for us. However, we do run Class Freak, so it's just -1 agility, so I didn't bother to remove it. And similar to that, we do have Empath, which has a minor downsides when not in a team, which we aren't, but I didn't want to remove it simply because we run Class 3 anyways. What you want to have here is Marsupial, Plague Walker, Speed Demon, Twisted Muscles, and Unstable Isotope. Now, more importantly, Marsupial, Twisted Muscles, and Speed Demon, those three are important for us. Better jump height, obviously, faster movement speed, so we can close in our distance to the enemy faster, and Twisted Muscles, well, more melee damage and chance to cripple. That's pretty self-explanatory, I think. We're using melee weapons, and therefore, yeah, more damage, and the chance to cripple is nice to have. Plague Walker, Unstable Isotope, if you don't like them, don't use them. They're not doing a whole lot, they're just there for flavor, obviously. So in terms of damage, you can say they are pretty redundant, obviously, but I do like it when every now and then there goes a little mushroom cloud, or enemies having this poison aura. So that's about it here. In terms of equipment, first let's take a look at our weapon, the anti-armor swing speed Warglaive. Now in terms of condition, this thing holds for pretty much ever, but we are pretty invested into keeping it that way, not because it's necessary. Even if you have no luck of the draw, no makeshift warrior at all, this thing holds for a while, especially if you repair it up to 200%. Yeah, you can use this thing for 2 hours and onwards. I just wanted to invest a little bit into gun condition, into weapon condition, simply because of the convenience, and we had the points, but that's about it. Yeah, we barely lost any condition during the whole video. I can't even tell you how much, because yeah, we started pretty much at the same point we are now. In terms of armor, we do have this here set of X01 armor with, as I said, scorch paint on everything but the helmet, which has the scabbard paint. And in terms of modifications, we do have calibrate shocks on the legs, simply for more carry weight. We do have the Tesla coils on the torso, which I do like when I do run melee, because yeah, if you're getting swarmed or you're always close in on enemies, so the coils are always in effect pretty much. And even though they're not doing a ton of damage, it's often enough if you just can't quite one-hit an enemy. It will go down a few seconds after due to your Tesla coils. However, another good thing here would be core assembly for better AP refresh, but nothing we desperately need here. Reactive plates could also be nice. In terms of the arms, this is a bit more important. Yeah, optimized bracers, they are called. Those reduce the amount of AP that's necessary in order to power attack. I shown that during the video, during the gameplay. It's pretty substantial. I think it's about 25% reduction per arm, just from my experience here. I might be off by a little, but yeah, they pretty much, two of them pretty much seem to give you the chance to do twice as much power attacks. And lastly, we do have the helmet, which has VETS overlay, so it gives you a better VETS hit chance, which we don't use at all, but there was nothing we necessarily need. Best thing you could do here would probably be the one that gives you extra intelligence for a bit more level ups, but that's about it. I did use the blue headlamp, which is kinda, you can hardly see it when in third person, but in first person, especially if you're inside, yeah, you really see the difference, and it adds to this whole chilling theme, this whole frost theme. And well, that was it in terms of equipment, and now let's take a look at our perks themselves. Now, strength, we do have Slugger, all 3 ranks maxed out. Then we do have Martial Artist and Insider. This is a very generic melee oriented build. Like, if you're not going for unarmed, you probably want to have this here either with Slugger or Gladiator. You could obviously go down a little bit and use rank 2 of each Slugger perk in order to include something like Blocker for a bit more survivability. Pain Train could be fun, or maybe you need it in order to get some weight reduction perks, but overall this is pretty much the best you can do in terms of damage, in my opinion. Perception, a bit of a dead weight one. We are already down to 1, but yeah, we do need. Best decision would be to use 1 rank of Glow Sight, probably. Bit situational, but at least it gives you some extra damage here and there. I included it because sometimes, you know, when I get some cryogenic grenades or something, I tend to use them and throw them in just for fun because it fits the character. However, do whatever you like here, there's nothing you actually need. In terms of endurance, we are fairly low with 7, but we do have power armor, and we do make the best out of it with Life Giver and Fireproof. So Fireproof, pretty substantial. We don't have access to a dense chest piece, so we don't want to die to random super mutants or cars exploding, and also it's nice to not get any damage from Scorched Beasts, especially if our approach to killing them is just waiting until they land, so they have a lot of time to shout at us, and yeah, we want to tank that. Life Giver, just a bit of extra health, pretty easy here, pretty easy to grasp. Another 7 when it comes to Charisma. We do have Lone Wanderer and Tenderizer. Now, if you want to run in a team, which you can obviously do, one thing you want to do is switch out Lone Wanderer for Inspirational or whatever you like, and 1 rank of Strange in Numbers, probably. But that's about it. I went for a Lone Wanderer approach, bit more tankiness, bit more AP refresh, and Tenderizer. Not the most necessary thing here, but it's nice to have, especially if you're going against a Scorched Beast or something like that. In terms of intelligence, we're at 8. We do use rank 3 of First Aid, and we're rank 5 of Makeshift Warrior. Now, I already said it, investing into Makeshift Warrior is not necessary at all on this occasion. Like, I mean, you need it in order to mod your weapon, and you can't just give the weapon to someone else in order to let them mod it for you. So there's an argument that, yeah, you want to have max rank makeshift warrior on this character, at least in the background, so that's it. But I went for it simply because I never want to bother with repairing the weapon, and so far I played like 10 hours or something with this weapon, and yeah, I never had to repair it. First aid, pretty simple. We do use Born Survivor, and it procs fairly often, especially if you are in tougher fights with a lot of enemies. And yeah, having more bang for your buck when it comes to stimpaks is nice in order to reduce their the rate you're going through them, because after all, you're going down to 20% health, automatically take a stimpak and you get down back up to 100% health most of the times, unless you're using a diluted one. And onto agility, we do have Action Girl, Through Hiker, Born Survivor, and Adrenaline. Now the important piece here is Adrenaline and Born Survivor. Born Survivor I just explained. Adrenaline, yeah, we might as well. We want to have some agility going on just to do some power attacks every now and then, especially when it comes to bosses in daily ops or something. Those really make a difference. So we have a lot of points to spare in agility, and max rank Adrenaline on this occasion, very nice to have. Born Survivor gives us the edge in terms of survivability. Through Hiker, go for whatever you like. I included it just to spare some weight. Could be useful on a melee character. As you know, a lot of buffs for melee weapons come from food, so if you are one of those persons that likes to use a lot of buffs, Through Hiker probably a good idea. And Action Girl for just more AP refresh. You could use Dodgy, there is an argument for it, instead of Through Hiker. However, I didn't want to bother with it, to be honest. It kind of messed up my power attacks every now and then, and I just didn't feel like it was necessary. And lastly, we do have luck at 11 with Bloody Mass, Luck of the Draw, Class Freak, and Starch Genes. Now, Class Freak and Starch Genes, for our mutations, we want to keep them, want to have the least negative effects from them, and don't want to get some random effects, random mutations. There would be quite a few that could mess with us a little bit, like Bird Bones, Egghead. Those reduce strength and endurance, which we don't want to have, even though with Class Freak we could reduce that to like -1 or something. It's still messing with our damage and we don't want it. Easy as that. Luck of the Draw. Now, as I said with Makeshift Warrior, the combination of those two makes it so we basically never have to repair our weapon. The condition wears down very slowly, and every now and then you get it to repair itself. And yeah, as I said, I played with it for like 10 hours or something and never had to repair it. And as you saw, it's about 2/3 or maybe even 3/4 of the condition bar is left, and I didn't even repair it up to 200%. So the 10 hours I played with it made like 1/4 or 1/3 of a difference. So Bloody Mass lastly, bit more extra damage, nothing out of the ordinary here. And last but not least, we do have our legendary perks. We do have legendary intelligence, charisma, strength, and agility. Now strength, obviously, the moment I can rank it up further, I want to do that. Ultimately, I want to have it at rank 4. Pretty straightforward, it's just more melee damage. It doesn't give us any ability to max out any more perks or something, but yeah, it's giving us more damage, and that's what we want to have here. Legendary Charisma. Now, you should never take Legendary Charisma simply because it doesn't increase the passive benefit from Charisma, which is sharing perks. So just use it for luck and transfer 1 point of luck over to Charisma. Simple as that. There's no good reason to ever take Legendary Charisma. Yeah, and the rest here, Intelligence and Agility, just a bit more perks that we can use. Otherwise you would need to use rank 1 of First Aid here, or rank 3 of Makeshift Warrior. And in terms of agility, I guess that would probably be Through Hiker going out, but that's about it. Electric Absorption, we are in Power Armor, we all know it's a great perk, so that's why it's there. It's I think it still has a chance to heal you, and even though they lowered the chance, but if someone with a flamer or Gatling laser attacks you, yeah, your fusion core is back to 100% most of the time, and also your health goes up again. And lastly, we do have collateral damage. I'm not really fond of the perk. I don't like it all that much, but after all, it's overall increasing your damage output in crowded situations, so might as well have it here. That's about it. Now, that's all I can say in terms of perks. I hope you enjoyed the build so far. I think my PlayStation was quite quiet today, so maybe we have luck and have actual decent audio for once. But overall, I said it during the video, one of the melee builds that I had the most fun with since Wastelanders dropped. I found melee to be quite frustrating. I know there's way better options in terms of damage, but this build is pretty much carried by the strength of the weapon itself. However, you can actually easily use a Super Sledge or a Grognak's Axe. I used both of them. I actually used an instigating Grognak's Axe with swing speed, so keep in mind, due to the Tesla calls, the instigating effect was pretty much never in effect, because enemies were pretty much always damaged already, and even then the weapon performed quite well. We really go for a bit more of a tankiness approach and swing speed here, so you can do whatever you like with this build. You can use pretty much every single melee weapon and do fine. You may run through a little bit more of Stimpaks, or you may die every now and then, take a bit more time in order to take down enemies. But overall, this is, in my opinion, a pretty straightforward melee build, which I quite enjoyed. And also, I gotta say, I really love the apparel and aesthetics of the character. But that's personal opinion. I hope you enjoyed the build, and I'm hoping to see you next time. Bye.